If I would have to ask you the number one thing that bothers you in your life, I'm 90% sure that your answer will be self doubt. Because self doubt is eventually the only thing that makes us fail, that makes us not go and reach our full potential. Self doubt creates self sabotage. Self doubt creates a lot of questions, makes us struggle to make decisions, to go in the right direction. We're afraid of doing something wrong, of being wrong, of acting wrong. So, probably the biggest question in life is how to stop self doubt. If you could live without doubting yourself, what would your life look like? And I'm pretty sure this is not even imaginable for most of you out there. And don't worry, this actually isn't imaginable for me as well. Everybody thinks that successful people just knew how to do it and they just got there. And that's just not true. Actually, for my entire life, I was doubting myself. And I believe that this is actually highly normal. And I'm going to go right into it now. But many people looked at me at any age as someone that probably has a lot of self confidence. I became very early in my teens a pretty good soccer player without having a lot of talents. So obviously, I had to compensate with something by great performance, by determination, by hard work. And so naturally, this gives the impression that I was self confident. And also, at school with good grades, good results, and all this was basically just a way to cover up my insecurities. There was self doubt at any stage. When I started to go out and talk to women, you know, after pretty much 6 months, I have done everything in the dating scene that is imaginable. And that usually I had guys that were 10 years, 15 years older who spent their pretty much their entire life learning those skills, looking at me like I'm some kind of an UFO, just a Martian, someone coming from a different planet that is not afraid, that just steps up and who does things and who is not afraid to fail and who actually succeeds. So there was this impression that I don't have any doubt in myself. And the truth is, all my successes were fueled by the self doubt. All these successes were fueled by the fact that I was worried and I was struggling. Now, there is one thing that I learned early on in my life is when you want something, when you really want something, you always try to find a way to make it happen, whether it's the fifth time or 100th time to make it work. And I learned that. I remember the first time I went to my first boot camp, which was to learn how to seduce women in Ibiza. It was a 7-day training camp. And I remember I was there. I was 22 years old, and I felt like I had nothing to do there. All the other participants were in their 30s, very successful, very advanced in their careers. They all knew exactly where they were heading. They were successful. They had a lot of money. They were, very good looking guys. Even one of them was probably a 2 meter tall, absolutely gorgeous guy who would just look down at girls and say, "Hey, what's up?" And the girls would just look at him like, "Please take me with you." And I felt like I had nothing to do there. But what I had was an insane drive and an insane motivation to progress, to go beyond my condition of being just the youngest, of being the smallest, of being the less experienced one. And that triggered me. I decided it was, and that was a decision. It was a decision to commit to myself that whatever I'm afraid of, I am going to do it. And I took that really seriously. By this, I mean everything that would scare me, I would try it. And naturally, what happens is that your comfort zone expands. You're trying things that you believe are not possible, and whoa, guess what? Some of them, for some reason, work. Some of them happen to not be that scary. Some of them, even if they are, and even if they don't go that well, you still do not die. So, definitely expanding the comfort zone is important, because the truth, and what nobody talks about in schools and in normal education to normal people like us, is that there is not such a thing as a wrong decision, if you think about that. In a certain way, we are told our entire lives that we need to follow the right path, that we shouldn't, do things that are outside of the norm, what's regular. Our entire life is based on seeing what we should do. And if you think about that, that's not true. If you look at 2 points on a map, if you want to go from A to B, well, either you go straight from A to B, which might be one path, but you can also go from A to C and then to B, or from A to D and then to B. And most people think that if you go one way or the other way, these paths are completely different and you're never going to get to the same point. And that's completely not true. There is always a way to calibrate. And this is actually the second thing I wanted to tell you about, is that in anything you do in your life, every change happens in a second. The second you make a decision. As I told you, my decision when I started to, after a bad breakup and feeling completely down, my decision was, whatever scares you, you are going to do it. And that triggers all my decisions. I decided to go travel the world, to go for my first trip on my own, to go to Middle East in Armenia with one of my good friends, to travel backpacking, which is something I've never done before, to go to South America with my best friend and spend an entire month there, and traveling and visiting and learning new things and putting myself in uncomfortable situations, learning a new language, learning how to talk to women, go out there, meet women in real life, and do things that would scare me and trigger me because I just didn't know how to do them. And that's normal, because fear is the best guide to growth. Fear is the thing that always tells you where you're missing something. And people want fear to vanish, but fear is the most powerful fuel of a human being. If you learn to dance with it instead of actually being overwhelmed by it. Dancing with fear is the most beautiful ability that you might have. And this comes from a true decision. When I wanted to play soccer, this came from a self-doubt. This came, when I was a kid, I was very fat. And I was not really appreciated for who I am. I would say it that way, simply because I was a little different. I was very sensitive. I was not that integrated, and I was not that adventurous as a kid, so I would not necessarily try things that others would do just to show off. And so that kind of gave me a bad reputation. And I remember this time when I was playing a game, and I was a goalkeeper. So the goalkeeper has a lot of responsibilities, and I remember making a huge mistake. I conceded a goal that was just ridiculous, and it was in an indoor soccer tournament where everybody could see me. There were people watching us, parents from all the teams, and everybody just kept staring at me. I basically let something so ridiculous happen. I remember coming back home and starting to cry in my bed, and that night I made the decision that this is over. I need to change that. And I started, this decision triggered things that I would think that I'm not able to do, such as losing weight. I started to work out every evening on my own without knowing exactly how, but I just started there. I didn't know exactly how, but I started. I did something to get me from that point A to that point B. I didn't know how. I didn't go straight to that point B. I started probably in the worst possible way, not knowing how to do it, but I kept moving forward and kept trying to reach that goal. I started to be much more strict with my hygiene, my lifestyle, just to lose that excess weight that was basically pursuing me in my entire life and making me bad at soccer, which was my passion back then, but also in my entire life at school, with friends, with women, with everything. And this was just my entire purpose. And this comes from every decision. When there is something you really want to do, it will always comes from a huge fear. And this is also what makes it so rewarding to achieve it. Because any success achieved without fear is not a success. It's nothing. Success comes from feeling the fear and doing it anyways. And this is the beauty of the of dealing with fear, is that there was this study that was made on airplanes back then, when probably 20 years ago or something like that, from engineers, and Airplanes are, you probably took an airplane, you know that when you get there, you're probably guaranteed to get to the point of destination, and within a certain time frame. There is almost no delay or whatsoever. Is highly reliable, and everybody thinks that pilots have a clear map of how they should go to the point B, and that's true. However, in reality, they use instruments in their airplanes. They use stuff that allows them to navigate. And this study actually, and it makes sense, this study showed that if you look at this perfect trajectory from point A to point B, this airplane was 90% of the time off track, meaning that instead of being that way, they would just make sure to calibrate their way with their instruments, knowing if they're a little bit right, a little bit wrong, if they need to go where they need to go. And I really thought that this is truly the analogy of life and achieving anything, pretty much. You can get to your destination, you can succeed by being 90% of the time wrong. You can win by failing 90% of the time and still getting there. I think that's incredible. The only key is learn how to calibrate. And that exactly goes back to what I said, is do something. Action is always good because there is no wrong path. Whether you choose to go to point A or to point B, you can always reach your destination. And knowing that, whatever happens, you will be okay doing that because you still keep calibrating. That's the secret. So stopping self-doubt in yourself actually comes from just putting yourself in situations when you need to be on this path of calibration. So at the end of the day, it also comes back to make a decision, calibrate. If you're talking about seduction, it means break the ice, calibrate. And then the calibration lasts forever. Whether the girl, you don't see her the next day, or if you end up spending your entire life with her. These are really the keys to self-doubt. Now, the final thing I would like to mention is self-doubt usually doesn't necessarily comes from the fear of not getting somewhere. It comes from the fear of actually succeeding and asking yourself what's behind it. Most of my clients suffer from something called approach anxiety, or basically something that tells them that every time they put themselves in a situation when they need to break that ice and do something new, talk to women they don't know, they feel anxious and they are afraid, they are scared, they think they don't know what to say, they don't know what to do, they don't know what to do, they struggle to open their mouth, they have their throat who becomes heavy, their hands start to sweat, and so on and so forth. You probably have experienced that. And what I found is most of the time, we're actually not afraid of the thing we're afraid of. We're afraid of getting there, and if it works, what's after? Because the problem is that failure doesn't imply commitment, whereas success does. So if you try something that you're afraid of and you fail, then you failed, and that's it. And most of the time, this idea is actually not that scary. But what's behind that? What's beneath? This is just our brain using this idea of, fear of dying as an idea to portray, to show you that if you fail, that it's going to be bad. But actually, the true reason why you're unable to take action is because you don't know what's going to happen if you go there and it works well. Because what's after, it's something that is even more scary. It's something, being in this place of scarcity is comfortable. It's known. It's always clear that, worry is actually a very known place, and people tend to go back there very, very easily. But what happens if you actually opened your mouth, said something that totally doesn't make sense, and you are still accepted by your ideal girl, the one that looks exactly how you want to? When are you going to struggle next? The moment you are going to try to kiss her and you're going to be humiliated, which is probably even worse than just, saying something and being rejected right away. Or the moment when you will actually fall in love with her and you will lose all your strength and you will not know how to recover and you will be hurt from a breakup. Is that what is scary? This is called fear of success, and this is actually it's stronger than any kind of fear of failure or something like that. This is real because it goes back to the identity. And self-doubt literally means doubting yourself, doubting your ego? Who doubts in you? And you definitely must doubt in yourself because you don't believe you can handle the situation. See what I mean? If you knew that you could handle the failure, you wouldn't doubt yourself. And you probably know that you can handle failure, but you don't know if you can handle success, because success demands commitment. Success demands you basically assuming and being on top of what you did and going further. And this is something that usually can create much more pain. And this is the key to self-sabotage. This is really the key to self-sabotage, because that's only when you get somewhere where you believe you actually don't deserve, or where you truly doubt yourself, or you truly think that this is not something you can achieve, that all the mechanisms of self-sabotage appear. So as a call to action, I want you to remember two things: that it all goes back to making one decision, commit to something, and then start something. Start small and make your way through it. Always keep your destination in your mind and just make small steps to get there. And eventually, with repetition, with accumulation, it will start to work out better. You will doubt yourself less, and you will doubt yourself for more new things, because your comfort zone will be new, and there will always be new things beyond the comfort zone. And guess what indicates you what is the next step for you? Where's the next step where you should be heading to? Fear. Because fear tells you what is beyond your comfort zone. Fear tells you where you can grow. And growing means having less self-sabotage. So if you go in the direction of growth, you will always, always, always reduce self-sabotage, and you will never, ever reduce it to zero. There will always be some self-doubt and self-sabotage. The key is to learn how to use that as a fuel. When is it enough? Like, how long are you going to try to pretend like you can live a life that is mediocre? Why not just using that as a fuel? Why not just using that as a fuel to start and see where this takes you? And then, obviously, having better motivations. But there is no reason not to start. There is no reason to let self-doubt block you in your own way in making progress and in making your life epic. So, I hope this video helped you to have some ideas and clarity on self-doubt. Everybody has it, and everybody has the choice to either be completely passive about it and just doubt yourself, or prove your self-doubt that it's either right or wrong, but take some action.